Realtree has always had a connection to the fishing industry and the outdoor lifestyle. In 2016, Realtree expanded on the traditional business of creating the world's most effective camouflage patterns to create a fishing brand and family of patterns designed to connect the woods to the water and strengthen the bond between the two worlds. We couldn't be more excited to be working with the industry's top brands, retailers, and anglers to continue our growth, and we hope that you will join us. Enjoy Realtree fishing patterns inshore, offshore, on the lake, or at the dock. Learn more about the extensive line Realtree fishing patterns, apparel, gear, and more at Realtree.com.
One thing that all of us outdoorsmen and women love to do is travel, whether to fish new waters or to chase wild game in other areas that we may not get opportunities at in our own area. Our friends at Monster Reservations Group want to open up an entirely new chance for you to travel and enjoy the outdoors or just relaxing. With over 40 destinations in the U.S. like beautiful Gatlinburg, Tennessee, Wisconsin Dells, and Shenandoah Valley, Virginia, Poconos, Pennsylvania, and even our backyard here at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And many more. They are going to give you twice the vacation. That's right. Pay for 4 nights, and you're going to get 4 nights for free. That's $498 for an 8-night stay at one of our incredible destinations, and that's for simply listening to Trilogy Outdoors. Go book your trip and get all the details at www.monsterrg.com. That's monsterrg, all lowercase.com. Pay less for an incredible opportunity to explore the outdoors in your choice of over 40 destinations. Book your trip now.
Hi, I'm Jim Shockey, and I would like to extend all of you a warm invite to our Jim Shockey Classic Military Charity Event. Our 2021 Military Charity Event was a huge success, and our 2022 event is going to be even better. The proceeds from our military charity event, supported by Freedom Hunters, is going to help get the men, women, and families of our U.S. and Canadian Armed Forces out on outdoor adventures. There is no better cause than honoring the courageous men and women who protect our freedoms. So join Louise and me on March 27th and 28th, 2022 at the Wild Dunes Resort on Isle of Palms in South Carolina. Go to JimShockeyClassic.com to register, and I'll see you there.
Trilogy Outdoors.
All right, folks, welcome to another fun episode. A little different today. Episode of Trilogy Outdoors, and myself, partner here, Stephen Goldfinch, are hanging out at Merle's Inlet Fishing Charters in Merle's Inlet. And I'll tell you, this time of the year, Stephen, it was a great idea to talk about what? Flounder fishing.
Flounder fishing. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, we're talking flounder fishing, but everybody here has done nothing but talk about turkey hunting since we got here.
It's the
we
season.
can switch topic. It's all good.
I know.
We're a versatile
We're
group.
like that.
Yeah.
So you haven't harvested a turkey yet, have you, Stephen, this year?
I don't think I've taken a gun yet.
Yeah.
I've called in quite a few for people that have, let's just say,
Missed?
not
sealed the deal.
followed through with their end of the deal.
Yeah. So you got another one this afternoon you're doing the same thing for, right? I hope he can close the deal.
I'm taking my brother-in-law, David. David's a dentist from Mount Pleasant.
Yep.
Prolific turkey hunter, also a flounder fisherman. In Charleston, they, oddly enough...
There's not flounder in Charleston, if you ask anybody, is there?
Oddly enough, they do very little flounder fishing in Charleston.
Yep.
From Georgetown North, they do very little flounder fishing. I think that's at the bottom what it's made of.
That's why we got the world's largest flounder tournament coming up here in Merle's Inlet in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
It is. I'll put it up.
30th.
I'd have to say it probably is, unless you want to call a fluke tournament in New York.
No, we don't want to do that.
Okay, all right.
What is a fluke?
Yeah,
A fluke is a flounder.
Oh, that's the backwards eye.
A fluke is a flounder. No, a halibut is the back. I mean, hang on. A flounder up north is a backwards flounder for us.
Sounds about right.
But flounder up north, a flounder up north is not a predator. It eats worms and stuff.
That's right.
They catch them on bloodworms and stuff, and they don't grow very big. So their fluke is what we have as a flounder that's actually a predator with teeth that eats live prey.
Well, if you're like me, it's a fluke if you catch one anyway, flounder or not.
So
that's
fluke is something that's weird that
I think
happens.
the panel is unanimous.
That's why we have brought. That's why we have brought these two on board with us today for Trilogy Outdoors, and I had the pleasure of listening to one of these two last night give a seminar on flounder fishing, and It was particularly artificial, and it was very educational, I will say.
Yeah, we had a good time last night. That was a good little turnout, good food, and everybody had some good questions, so it was pretty good.
Yeah, there was a lot of notes taken last night. A lot of notes. I saw it.
Where were you last night?
We were at Grand Strand Saltwater Anglers monthly meeting where you spoke last month.
Right.
And Jason was invited to be the guest this month and spoke on artificial. And quite frankly, Z-Man should have been paying him to do the seminar last night because every artificial bait he leaned on
It sure seemed
was
that
a Z-Man.
way.
Well, I mean, it's hard to dispute the stuff doesn't fall apart.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
You can catch 3 bluefish.
You
4
catch
bluefish,
3 or 4
5
bluefish in a
on
row.
one lure.
That was one of my opening statements last night. I said, you know what's best about this Elazatech product is it is bluefish proof.
It's
Yeah.
friendly.
Friendly. You go through one pack of those, you
get
go through
something.
10 packs of
You
the
get
other one.
something. That's
Well,
your gulp or you're gone one bite.
In Merle's Inlet, that's a necessity,
It is a
Yes.
necessity, Merle's Inlet.
right? I mean, there are other places where it's not quite as big a deal, but here it's a big deal.
Yeah. Down south, they fish. Don't even have pinfish problems. Like,
Yeah. No.
we got pinfish, bluefish. We're sure lucky here.
Yeah, we are.
We are.
Jay owns a bait store. Hey, real quick, let's introduce our guest hosts and panel members today. First and foremost, we just mentioned him, Captain Jason Burton, a.k.a. the Flounder Pounder, owner of Merle's Inlet Fishing Charters here in Merle's Inlet. Jason, real quick, how long you been fishing here in Merle's Inlet? How long you had a charter business, everything else? Introduce everybody to yourself.
Sure. Yeah, I'm actually born and raised from Merle's Inlet. I'm one of the very few who can say that they were born here. I've been fishing, the inlet 25 plus years. I've been running charters since 2006, and there's not a whole lot that we haven't seen or done around here. Definitely changed.
As I don't know if people can pick up a little bit of wind in the background, but we are kind of tucked away behind Merle's Inlet Fishing Charters here on the beautiful Merle's Inlet Marsh Walk, and I noticed a lot of your captains are getting bait and heading out.
Yeah, it is. It's that time of year. It's spring. We got spring breaks. We got Easter. A lot of stuff going on. So, kids are out of school. And if you're going to go on vacation, what better to do than take your family fishing? And, we've got everything set up for, multiple groups down here. So as you can see, the guys are walking by, loading the boats down with bait and ice and stuff. And they're getting ready to go out on their second trip for the day. Hopefully this wind's not too bad for them and they'll have a good trip.
Now that is perfect to lead into our next guest. And our next guest supplied them with the bait that they're going fishing with, and that would be Captain Jay Baisch of Baisch Boys Bait and Tackle in Merle's Inlet. Jay, you were a charter captain here for a long time, and finally realized you got tired of doing the charters and buying all the bait. You said, heck, I'm going to sell the bait and make more money that way.
I don't know if I got too tired or too old. That's a young
There you go.
man's
That's-
game.
It
Being
is
on
a
a
young
boat
man's
every
game.
day, it's like charter fishing's like duck hunting. You don't see a lot of older guys doing it, man. It just gets to a certain age in life where it hurts too much.
Yeah.
And,
Agreed.
and I hit that, and I had an opportunity come up when all of our friend Big Dave passed on, and I had an opportunity of getting into the bait shop business, and I didn't kick and scream. Let's just say that I gracefully moved over, and counting to 12 over and over again, getting minutes for everybody now, and you know what's really fun? I can give away fishing holes for free all day long now, and it don't matter.
That's right.
To me.
That's right. You do give them away.
Yeah, it's
and-
fun. I like plugging people in, and that's what we do down at our shop. If you're from out of town and you don't know where to go or what to do, and whether it's crabbing or fishing and being on the beach, we can help plug you in and help your learning curve out a little bit and get you in touch with the right people. And
I'll say-
Jason will be one of those right people if you're interested in fishing.
Yep.
He's one of the first on the list that we give out to, and he's got 4 or 5 guides that have been doing this for all of them more than 5 years now. So here in our inlet, they've all been doing it for longer, but he's got all people that have been doing this for more than 5 years apiece in our inlet, and that makes a huge difference. So he's real easy to recommend, and come by the bait shop.
Well, I'll tell you, you're talking about the Merle's Inlet Fishing Charters. Yeah, incredible guys. Jay is, both of these two guests that we have today are probably two of the best flounder fishermen in Merle's Inlet, as far as many different reasons. Attention to detail. They know every aspect of it. Both of them are live bait fishermen and artificial fishermen. And that's why I think having the two of y'all on today is going to be key in this discussion, is to talk about the different styles. Like I texted y'all this morning from the turkey field, I will say. I was in the woods when I texted y'all this morning. bring a couple examples or whatever you want to talk about for artificial. But, when it comes to live bait for flounder, we all pretty much use the same ideas.
Yeah. When it comes to live bait, I mean, you've got three choices. You got mud minnows, mullet minnows, or shrimp.
And you got Carolina rig, you got jig head, and you got a float rig.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's pretty much the three rigs.
I'm
and then the
double,
trolling.
I'm fishing a double jig head now. That's what I've moved to. I've actually moved to, I was using a 3/8 ounce single jig, but the jig head sinks so fast, I think you lose your presentation on the sink. So when you lift that thing and that 3/8 jig head sinks, it sinks so fast that I think you lose a little presentation. So I've switched over now, and I'm actually fishing 2 8-ounce jig heads at a time. And it creates enough resistance that it feels heavy enough where you can get the tension in your line to feel a bite that you actually need. But each one, when you actually drop it after your bump, flutters down, and you get the presentation you need out of it. So I'd consider what we're doing is kind of a hybrid between artificial and live bait. I'm a lot of times using a live bait on mine, but I'm jig head fishing, so it's kind of a hybrid, I'd say.
When we all switched to jig head fishing for them, I thought the same thing. The way we fish it, it's more like fishing an artificial. Live bait, fishing it like an artificial.
That's my preferred method is jig head with live bait. Yeah. I mean, but back to your daisy chaining. How far?
Yeah, we got a camera here. Let me put one out right here. I'll show you.
Yeah, you can put it on the camera. Oh, by the way, hang on.
Yeah.
The producer forgot to turn it on.
Oh boy.
It's okay. It's okay. Nothing to see
That's
here.
what I'm doing. And I just tied with thick line.
So you're not daisy chaining, okay?
No, I tie a double uni knot.
And
then I tie another uni knot on top and slide it down.
Double uni knot and another knot on top of the main line.
Yep.
You've got a.
Yeah. So this right here, if you see here, would actually slide up because it's actually just another uni knot that slides down on top.
Okay, so for those who are not looking at the camera and you're just listening to the audio, we've got a main line, which can be braid or mono, coming down to what's that, like 50? It's pretty heavy.
This is heavy, and I put heavier line than I would use on here because I thought it'd pick up on camera better.
Yeah.
So I normally use about a 30, and I actually put a little bit bigger jig head on here than I would normally use because I thought it would show up better.
Because you're showing up better.
Right. But I usually use about a 20 or a 30 fluorocarbon for this leader line,
Yep.
and then an 1/8 ounce for that.
So we've got six or so inches, 6
and then
or
about
7
20
inches. Going to what you would say a 1/8.
Yeah.
You would normally use a 1/8.
Right.
And then tied to that, we've got about 20 inches, also 20 to 30 pound fluorocarbon, tied to another 1/8 jig head. And then you'd be fishing these with mud minnows or mullet.
Either way, whatever you can get. When you're doing this, here's what's nice about this. These jig heads, and once again, you can't see these on radio, but they're a stand-up jig head. So the jig head always stands up, so the presentation of the hook is always in the right place. If you use a flat jig head and it lays on its side, then your mud minnow is going to lay on its side.
Right.
And, you're still going to get bites, but it's going to be harder for that fish to get the hook in his face because it's on the dirt. So it's a little stand-up jig head. That's probably the most important part of it. But when we start talking about jig head fishing, we got time, so let me get into it here.
No, we got tons. We got tons of time.
We got tons of time, so let's get into it. When I jig head fish, the first things in the spring, there's three things. There's three things I take into account when I'm fishing. What the tide is, where the sun is, and what the wind is. Those are the three things I take into account in just spring fishing. A fish can't digest its food unless it's warm enough to do so. It's cold-blooded. So for digestion reasons alone, a flounder is going to seek out warmer areas so it can eat and actually digest and metabolize the food that it's eating. So I pick banks where I have the sun to my back, where the sun is hitting on the bank. So I don't want the sun and the bank facing the same direction because it doesn't get the same exposure. I want a bank that's facing into the sun, and I want the current and the wind going the same direction. So it's a lot of asks. So when I first go to the water, 3/4 of my flounder spots are instantly out.
Right.
Just by association of me putting those three things into effect. So then like yesterday, or 2 days ago, I fished for the first time in a while. Jason and I, unfortunately, now are too busy to flounder fish anymore. At one point, we were really good at this. So, but here we are. So I went to a spot. I literally fished for an hour and a half, caught a dozen fish, and I went home because I knew the tide started coming in. The colder water was coming in. The water was getting too deep on that mud flat. They weren't going to feel warm anymore. So living here I can just go fishing for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and get done what you're going to get done as if you were to fish for 6 hours.
Yep. Right. Because you're fishing the most optimal
time, the most optimal sun position. Most, and the reason I look for wind and current going the same direction, it creates the tension I'm looking for on my line when I'm when I'm bouncing it through the water. If everything's moving in one direction, it's really easy for me to get tension on the line to feel the jig head directly. When you got things going in different directions from each other, it just becomes more challenging. So, like I said, I will optimize first and burn up my spots where everything lines up, and then I'll start working from there.
That sounds a lot like what I listened to last night.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, honestly, like, you covered a lot of this.
Yeah, same thing like you were talking. It's crazy that you can take the wind direction and the tide, and you can eliminate spots. Like if you have spots that are perpendicular to a bank, and the wind's blowing down the canal. Do you feel? And I'm just going to ask you a couple questions. Do you feel like the wind will position the fish differently on the same bank because of the wind?
I mean, it's almost as if it's a freshwater pond. Wind influences everything: bait, current, everything. It puts pressures on the water and influences everything. So yes. And unfortunately, I can't say it's going to be on the up current side of or the down current because that's the part you got to figure out.
Still got to fish.
Yes, it does associate the fish together in a spot, but that spot might not be the same exact spot as it was last time it was windy. And so, yes, it makes a big difference. I think you still have to fish through it and figure out what that difference is that day.
Yeah, I mean, so in general, let's go back just a second. We just ran over a lot. So in general, let's just say in the morning time, you'd be fishing a bank that is an easterly facing bank.
Preferably.
In the afternoon, you're preferably fishing a bank that's a westerly facing bank.
And that's what I've been doing lately.
Right, okay. Yep. And, unless you're just out of options, you're looking for a place where wind and tide are moving in the same direction.
Right.
All right, so if you've got a peninsula, an inlet, something that's also changing the dynamics of that situation, how are you fishing the inlet? How are you fishing the peninsula? The little sandbar that juts out.
Right. Yeah. Well, trolling motors have made this. I was older school than trolling motors, and this was taking your context clues where, oh my God, a guy on the left side of the boat made a full cast, caught a fish. Let's bump on over and just following. You're following your context clues out to the end, and
that's the truth.
We're talking about actually anchoring or positioning the boat in a way where it's still to fish right now for flounder, and a lot of people troll for flounder, and I'm going to go over why what we're talking about is better real quick. When you're trolling for a flounder, there's a certain tension on the line there's a point where the fish has to be able to feel you for you to be able to see the bite when you're trolling for flounder, just because you have tension on the line the whole time. So it's hard to catch big flounder trolling for them because they can feel the tension of the line when they grab it. So there's one moment, and it happens at the same time for you as the same time for that fish when you're trolling. If he's old enough to know better, he knows you're there at the same time you know he's there. Right. Where with a fishing rod being anchored, you can feel a fish before he feels you. And when you're talking about flounder fishing, that's the key to catching a flounder. When I get bit and I know that fish doesn't feel me, I feel I won already. You know what I mean? It's like watching that turkey running across the field. Like, gotcha.
You know, it's like that moment before you pull the trigger. Right, like, here we go.
Right, here we go.
You feel the bump. Now stop right there for a second, because this is a big point of contention.
Right.
With everybody is when you feel the bump.
How long?
A lot of people open that bell and say count to 10.
Yeah. Now trolling, that's the method.
Yeah.
Is just open the bail, keep the boat going for a little while. I mean, some people get silly, like, I smoke half a cigarette.
There you go.
Like, it gets crazy.
Yeah. I hear that all the time.
Crazy. When you're fishing this jig head and artificials, the beauty of it is you pop them when you feel them.
Yeah.
They suck it in. They pull it off the bottom, and they suck it in that position of the hook. Usually gets them. And with the weight of the jig head in their mouth, you don't want to let them hold it for too long. Like I said, once I feel them, I'll give them, literally, if I know I have them, I'll give them 5 seconds. And that's just enough time for me to slowly, because when I fish this artificial, my rod is in a very high position. For me to get the bounce I want and not actually slide the jig head very far, the rod has to be in a very high position. If your rod's too low, it moves the jig head actually too far when you're doing it. So you have to have your rod in a very high position where you're just slowly bouncing and dragging. Bounce without really moving it and drag. So you're in such a high position, you have nowhere to go for a hook set. So after I get a thump, I literally, as slowly as I can, just reel down, get the line tight until I run out of rod, and then I pop them.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And that's a good point, too. Even if you're fishing around structure, having that rod at such a low point gives you leverage on the initial pull.
That's right.
You know, if you're fishing beside a dock or a rock pile or something, or the jetties, if you have that rod at a high position and you set the hook, by the time you reel down, he may have ran you into the structure already.
So
that's a very good point right there.
So you're mainly touching on live bait or artificial. So you have the same rule.
Now sometimes I'll fish this same exact rig with one voodoo shrimp and one. So I'll take the top one and cut it off and put the smaller size voodoo on there, and I'll fish. And I'll be dead honest with you, they match each other. If you get good at fishing an artificial, especially in the springtime when bait's hard to come and the fish are really looking for a bite, there's no reason other than buy a couple bags of plastic and really go artificial fishing this time of year.
Yeah, I agree.
So you mentioned trolling versus anchored up and fishing. Would you not say that 20 years ago, probably 90% of the flounder fishermen, if not higher,
100%,
were trolling?
100%. And here's where technology has led. you know what I mean? Offshore fishing 20 years ago, everybody was trolling drone spoons and cedar plugs, and everybody's I ain't bringing no bait out there. Use up on my ice. You know what I mean? Like, I think evolution of fishing and technology, and it's just all hand in hand, and it's where we are today.
No doubt. I can tell you that the stationary flounder fishing or whatever is criticized highly by the trollers.
Oh, yeah. And vice versa.
But I've got trouble knowing that if I can fish in an area that's 100 yards long or such and stay there, why troll and continue to troll? This has been an argument since we started. I mean, since charter business started getting busier and busier. And we would be in certain areas fishing, and everybody was like, you're taking up so much area.
I don't care if you're talking about squirrels or deer or flounder. 90% of the game lives in 10% of the area. Yeah. So when you find those 10% areas where the game lives, why would you spend 90% of your time in the wrong spot trolling around? That's my biggest question.
Amen.
So I talked to a guy the other day, and we got in a friendly thing, and he said, well, you know, I troll. I bet you I catch more fish than you. I said, you probably do.
Probably do.
I said, but think about it this way. I said,
baby killer.
When you troll by a fish and you catch a fish, by the time you unhook him and turn your boat around and go back to that same spot, you now have caught 2 fish. In the time it took you to turn that boat around, I've made 9 casts.
Yeah.
I may have caught 3. I may have not caught any.
I might clean the whole hole out.
I might have cleaned the entire hole. I may have position to where you can't come back by here.
Right.
You know, but
that's what I was going to say. I think the majority of this conversation is all about competition in areas like this.
It is partially.
Yeah, I mean, but that's not. You don't ever see this debate among people in Allendale, or even the rural parts of Georgetown, the ditches in Georgetown where you can catch flounder.
Right.
But you don't have that competition issue.
No.
Right. So you don't ever run into this argument. You only run into it in places like Cherry Grove,
it's really here.
Pawleys and Merle's Inlet.
And with Pawleys, the opposite is winning. Trolling wins in Pawleys.
Trolling does win in Pawleys.
So in Pawleys Island, if you sit anchor up in a spot, they're just going to keep trolling right through you. And,
That's exactly
and you're
right.
going to have to sit and hold your line for 4 minutes and wait for them to go by because they're going to go as slow as they can. They're going to look at the houses instead of you. And just keep going.
It's all about the number of people.
It's all about the number of people and what the majority wins.
And we are talking about beautiful Pawleys Island, South Carolina, Merle's Inlet, South Carolina. We're talking about Cherry Grove and what's the inlet up there? Hog Inlet.
Hog
Inlet.
Yeah, Hog Inlet.
Those are the areas that we're talking about for those that aren't familiar with where we're located. But
so I'd like to ask y'all this because y'all do a lot more inshore flounder fishing than I do. I have spent most of my life under the water offshore and have killed a bunch of big offshore flounder over the years. I've seen a balloon in population of offshore flounder, while it seems like in the last 5 years we've had sort of a diminishment or a dwindling of population inshore. I can't seem, and I've discussed this with biologists, I've discussed this with Department of Natural Resources. I know there's different kinds of flounder.
Absolutely.
I mean, I get all that, but I can't seem to understand the correlation. Do you believe that's because there's more people, more pressure focusing on the inshore waters? or is there truly something biological going on that we don't understand?
I agree with the first one.
You think it's more people?
I'm a duck hunter, so I'm going to bring this to, because you can't see flounder, it's hard to figure out what they're doing. As a duck hunter, I know where a duck feels safe in these plantations, and I can watch a duck fly way too far to shoot at over everywhere he knows there's any pressure.
Sure.
And I can watch him drop right into where he knows there's no pressure. I don't think flounder are doing anything different. It's just we can't see them.
Yeah.
I think that if you come in Murrells Inlet, I caught 25 flounder today, one keeper. Well, that means 24 flounder have had a bad experience in Murrells Inlet.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you've had that kind of time when you came to visit Murrells Inlet, you wouldn't go back to Murrells Inlet either.
Right.
So I think it has to do a lot with just fishing pressure and just them having a bad time and figuring out where the least resistance to them living out their life is and just filling in those niches. Flounder are awesome like that. They live in every environment we have. It's a rarity. You can catch them out in 60 feet of water. You can catch them in 6 inches of water. There's only several fish I can even think of, period, that's even a possibility for. So they can fill in niches in this environment, little tiny offshore reefs and live bottoms and stuff that get no pressure, and they know it.
I do think the offshore flounder fishing, and I say offshore in sense of outside the inlet, has really increased in the last couple of years. I think, I mean, I know several people, friends of mine from North Carolina that are, well, of course, they can't flounder fish. Well, they can, but they can't possess them.
They can't harvest them.
So they're coming here, and they love fishing the reefs.
Yeah, putting pressure on them.
Yeah, it's way more fun on the reefs. Because you know what's nice about flounder fishing a reef? There is so much competition for food for that flounder. When he eats your minnow, he has to hide it. Otherwise, he's going to be exposed to a barracuda, or he's going to be exposed to a sea bass or something to steal it from his mouth. So when you're on a reef and you're flounder fishing, as soon as you get the bite, it's go time. Because he has to hide it to preserve his life or to preserve his meal. And that doesn't happen in the inlet. Sorry, I bumped the table. I talk and bump the table, guys.
I know.
I'm getting yelled at by the
Stephen can hear
Mr. Producer.
yelling at me. I'm sorry, guys.
That's all right. It's amazing what people pick up on here, but I mean, your points are incredible. Keep going.
Yeah, but you gotta.
I don't know. You threw me off now.
And he slammed his hand again.
He's done.
He's a hand sogger.
He's done.
But you gotta admit, when he got his hands in his pocket now.
Oh, that's funny right there.
I don't think a lot of people ever refish for flounder. Possibly until you guys started doing it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I remember when I first started fishing.
I didn't even think about it when I first started either.
That wasn't even a thought process.
No.
It was like, I'm going to the reef because I'm going to catch, some spadefish or Spanish or barracuda.
Right.
You didn't go there going, okay, now I'm going to catch a flounder. And now
you know which piece of reef is the best one and in order.
People ride out there and they're like, oh, there's a boat sitting on my favorite piece of structure. My day's ruined. I go home. You see that a lot more.
Out of all my years of charter fishing, there was only one little place at 3 Mile Reef where if I saw another guy sitting there, I got twisted.
Oh, I know where it is.
Because you know what? Every day at some point, I felt like I was going to stop there and catch 4 flounder and it could save my day.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it was.
Saving a day with a 4 or 5 pounder flounder is a pretty good save.
Yeah.
You know what's weird, though, about the offshore reefs and the flounder is that you'll find a piece of structure. I mean, I know.
I want to hear from you. Yeah, this is
the guy who sees it.
I want to hear how they lay.
Well.
So there's a piece of structure. It's a shipwreck. It's in 100 feet of water, and it's loaded with flounder right now. I mean, they're laying on top of each other like this. Okay. There is literally another piece of structure. It's a little teeny piece of pipe that fell off of this shipwreck, maybe 200 yards away. There's not a fish on it. There's no flounder anywhere on it. I check it every single time to make sure.
It's just a swim.
Yeah,
goes for a swim.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's like right over there.
Yeah.
Same thing on the north end. That's on the south end. Same thing on the north end. If you go 120 degrees out of Murrells Inlet, you'll find it's in 85 or 90 feet of water. It's loaded with flounder right now. You go half a mile away to the other shipwreck. There's not one flounder on it.
3 miles the same.
3 miles exactly. What is there? 80 pieces of structure out there now?
70, and I can think of if I was to go flounder fishing, I can literally think of 5 spots at 3 miles.
That's what I was thinking. 5 to 7 max.
That you can actually fish with confidence. And I used to attribute that to the age of those pieces because a lot of those pieces seem to be the older stuff.
Yep.
And I was kind of attributing that to just how long it's been down there. But now what you're saying has no. I mean, they're put there at the same time, and that's kind of.
I don't think like I've been thinking about this all my life. I mean, literally thinking about it all my life. I don't see a difference in bait. I don't see a difference in tide. I think it's just like us. You know, you walk into a house and, you know, or your wife walks into a house and she says, that's the one.
Right.
Well, damn, we just walked out of the other one and it looks exactly the same to me.
You look the same to me.
This is the neighborhood. Why is this the neighborhood?
Well, it's kind of like almost like the restaurant effect.
Yeah.
If you go by a restaurant and there's a line out the door, they could have the worst food ever. You're going to go, we need to go there.
Exactly.
If you go by the best restaurant that has the best food and there's nobody there, you probably won't stop.
No,
Nope.
I cannot figure it out. Been thinking about it all my life. Can't figure it out.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But I've always said, you know, I've always heard from divers that said they lay on top of each other, literally stack on the sides. When you find them, that you might shoot one and have two on the end of your spear when you get it back.
There are places, I'll tell you, it's no secret the 3 miles got flounder. It's no secret the 10 miles got flounder.
Oh yeah.
I don't dive at any of
Don't go any further. Just stop there. You give it enough spots away.
I don't dive at any of those places anymore because the amount of people that are trying to kill you with hooks. But I would tell you, inside of those wrecks, there are where the ship has broken down and you can see the stringers and some, you know, I mean, essentially the bilge where you've got square cutouts. Sometimes they're 3 foot squared, sometimes they're 6 foot squared. In the middle of those square cutouts, every single one of them, if you can get inside the ship, has a big flounder laying inside of it.
Yeah,
Okay.
owning it.
And when I mean big, I mean you're
5
looking
pounds,
at
6 pounds.
5 to 8 pounds, yeah.
Yep.
And you swim 10 feet to the perimeter of the ship, and you'll find lots of flounder, but you know they're all these size flounder. And
it feels like that. Not being down there looking, it feels like that when you fish them, because the person on the boat that casts in the snag, the most times where you're getting so frustrated that they made the same cast again, by the end of the day has the biggest flounder.
That's right. The only thing I can think about that, I've seen flounder fight.
Punch the table again.
I've seen flounder fight underwater.
You've seen them fight?
I've seen them fight
I'd like to
underwater.
see that.
I've seen them fight for spots where, you know, two will swim up, especially if you spook them as you're swimming along.
Yeah.
One will spook here and one will spook here, and they try to lay down in the same place, and they'll go and
mouth to mouth it.
Yeah, mouth to mouth it, and then the bigger one lays down, and the smaller one scoots off.
And then you shoot them, and the spot's open.
So I think I think the same thing applies. The bigger flounder get the best primo spots
100%.
on the inside of the shipwreck where they're not getting molested.
That makes 100%.
Yeah,
You know,
I agree.
that makes the most sense. I mean, you see that in nature. You know, two deers run out in the field, butt heads. The bigger one stays, the little one's gone.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
That's
You got to figure out how to get into the snags. You got to figure out how to get into.
You want to sit closest to the buffet.
Yeah, that's right.
Are they breeding offshore? Do our flounder breed offshore? Because
Dead of winter.
why are they here all winter long?
Yeah.
They breed. Don't they breed in the middle of winter?
Middle of winter, offshore.
100 foot.
And then they come in.
I don't think every flounder participates in the breeding, and that's why there's a lot of flounders, smaller flounder that stay. They're just they're young females, young males, fish that just don't participate in the spawning stay year round.
So supposedly, I've debated this with DNR over and over and over again, and you know, the science has changed a little bit. But supposedly, a 13 to a 15-inch fish is in his first his or her. They'll somewhere around 13 inches they change to a female.
Right.
Okay. Everything up to 13 inches is a male, almost exclusively 100%.
Right.
Almost every fish is a male up to 13 inches, and then they slowly start turning to females. Some females come on at 13, some females come on at 15, but almost exclusively up to 13 you have males.
Right.
Okay, and it is undoubted that at 15 inches every flounder has had one breeding season.
Right.
15 inches. Okay, so you got a 15-inch fish. Every flounder has had one breeding.
So
at
moving
16,
to 16,
at 16 you usually have 2 seasons.
Yep.
You can guarantee 2 seasons
1 or 2.
at 16 inches, and then obviously it goes up from there.
so that was my next question about the regulations. What is everybody's thoughts on the new regulation?
I think
You've already
I think it
gone
helped
into
tremendously.
I do too. So I'm last year, you know, and I'm going to get skewered online for this. Last year I did. I'm still a gigger. Okay, shoot me, punch me, slap me if you want.
That's why we have numbers to say what you're allowed to have.
I love flounder gigging. I don't, you know, I'm not one of these guys that's a renegade. I I stick when I'm supposed to stick, and I don't stick when I'm not supposed to stick. I gigged 10 or 15 times last year in one of the better places in the county, and I saw more fish last year than I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. More fish. 95% of them were 15 inches.
Yep.
Okay. The year before that, I saw a bunch of fish. 95% of them were 14 inches.
Yeah.
This year, I'm guessing most of them are going to be 16 inches.
And that's the hope. But, I've found playing that game a lot, I have found that we are a location for a certain age group, not a certain size group. So all you're going to get is the next generation of that size. And that size that was there moves on to a different pasture.
Yeah.
So I think I've played this game. I played it with yellowfin tuna. I played this. I can't wait to next year game with about every kind of fish around here. And I have literally learned what size we get is usually what size we get because that's what size likes to live here.
Yeah.
And when they get a different size, they move on.
I think there's some legitimacy to that. I do think last year I saw more 15-inch fish than I have before.
And I'm hoping that number, I'm hoping we don't know what that number I was just talking about is because we haven't reached it yet.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm hoping that number is actually about 18, 20 inches.
That'd be great.
That would be great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But we're working towards that number to find out what it is when they,
Yeah.
So you voted on the change. You were supportive of the change. I mean, I'm putting you in a hot spot, I guess, but I'm not.
No. It's. I don't mind.
I think it was a great change.
I don't mind explaining it. It was a complicated change because
I don't think you want to change it all, did you?
The science really wasn't
there
for a couple different reasons, right? I mean, this last year, 2017 was the first time that we actually ever did a regional stock assessment of flounder. Okay, and the regional stock assessment was Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. The regional stock assessment showed that North Carolina was responsible for 60% of the catch.
Yep.
It showed that Florida was responsible for 30% of the catch, which meant that...
And that's crazy to me, but okay.
Which meant that South Carolina and Georgia were responsible for 10% combined of the catch. So when DNR came to me and said, we've got to go down to 2 fish per person, and we've got to cut out fishing altogether for flounder from March to November. I said no. I'm not doing that, guys. North Carolina and Florida are the problems.
Yeah.
They've got to do something.
On our end, it would just be like good faith.
Yeah,
and nothing else.
And that's what it was.
Guilty by
association. It was good faith.
That's
it.
all it is.
That's
It is good faith.
Yeah.
Because what I've heard is our 7%, Georgia's 3%, that 10% broken down.
Yeah.
At 7%, you barely got a taste of the pie. You don't even know what flavor it is.
If you're if you're not the problem, it's hard to be the solution.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, to me, all it was, like Jay said, was good faith. And I thought we needed some good faith.
Yeah, I'm in.
But I didn't think that closing flounder fishery for 9 months during the primo season of flounder fishing was the right solution. Because that essentially means zero.
If you look at it as we did something proactive instead of we did something helpful, I think it's a great rule.
Yeah.
I feel we've done something proactive instead of something that's going to save flounder as a species. And I think there's other proactive things we could do, like speckled trout and things. And there's things that the state says that's never going to be a problem. They're doing great. But, how do we know? Flounder was great 15, 20 years ago, and technology is getting good.
That's right.
Things are changing. They're
So
constantly
I like
changing.
proactive. The days of having 17 limits of flounder in your freezer and throwing them out in April because you can do it again need to be over.
Yeah, that's not
like
right.
The ocean's a big refrigerator. Go catch dinner.
I'll tell you, though, that there is a contingent of people that's growing in politics that believe that if you are going to eat a fish, you need to be able to catch it on your own.
Yeah.
Which means,
wait a minute.
This place closes down.
Yeah, I hear you. Well,
so, I mean, and that is a contingent.
Unless you're only selling sustainable fish, and then you're selling.
Wait a minute. They must work for the Pew Foundation.
But I mean, that group of people that despise commercial fisheries are growing, and it's hard not to understand their argument. Okay, and one, I love to eat fish, but it's hard not to understand their argument because there's a little bit of truth to it. The first one is the first part of that is if you have a problem with the population, the first group that needs to go is the commercial fisheries.
Yes.
Right. I mean, the recreational guys are very rarely the problem. The commercial guys very often the problem.
Just from the number of harvests.
Just from the number of harvests and bycatch.
Right.
So I mean, I get it from that perspective. Same thing with red snapper. When red snapper, this problem is my nemesis. But when red snapper came along, their first instinct of the federal government was to close down the recreational guys
and leave the commercial
and leave
open.
the commercial guys open.
Hello.
How'd that work out?
So you're gonna take away the guys that can keep one each and allow the guys that are like 2,000 pounds a trip.
So yeah, so that's just not that's just not right.
Yeah.
And that problem will continue to get worse as long as we have people.
That's right.
That think that way, and it'll get worse and worse and worse, and all of a sudden one day you'll wake up and there won't be a Murrells Inlet Marsh Walk.
Yeah.
Because they'll say commercial fishing's done because they've exploited it to the nth degree, to the detriment of the recreational fishermen. And there's got to be a healthy balance in order for it all to work.
And I feel this way. Not to get off topic or whatever, but
You're not.
I feel this way when you talk to Flounder. I think the shrimping industry is involved. I think they kill a lot of undersized fish. I think they destroy the bottom. I think there has to be a more non-invasive way to catch shrimp in South Carolina than we have.
So what you mean, for listeners who don't know, you're
Right.
talking about bycatch.
Bycatch.
I've been on shrimp boats. Tell me, you've never seen a bunch of baby dead flounder that are 2, 3 inches, 4 inches long. So why aren't we trapping shrimp like they do? Is it because it means a whole overhaul of the industry?
I'll tell you what we need to do. So 30 years ago, we had a booming channel net industry in South Carolina.
Santees were killing it.
And it just dwindled down to almost nothing. DNR took a position that we weren't going to issue any more permits, and they were going to die out with the owners, and then people started selling permits, same way they're doing with federal commercial snapper boats now. If we went back to channel net fishing and lesser dragging,
Yes.
we would have less problem. And I'll tell you why. Because, think about all of the bycatch you get from dragging the bottom as opposed to a channel net, which is pushing pushing water.
Well, I'm
So
thinking
you're
more along the lines of plant life.
Yeah.
Like a plant ain't going to disconnect and go into a channel net.
That's right.
Where we won't even let a blade of grass grow on the bottom of our ocean out here because it's going to get mowed down this fall.
That's
And
true.
I have lots of friends that rely on that industry to make a living, and I feel the pain of that. And I think there needs to be a less invasive way for them to do it, where you're not killing, DNR cannot even factor in that shrimping has an issue to do with flounder fishing. They can't factor it in.
You can do just as well channel net fishing as you can drag.
Agreed. Poundage-wise,
Poundage-wise,
size-wise,
you
the whole
can
bit.
with a whole lot less bycatch. And if we're concerned about, spending big giant wheels, churning up, cutting up sharks and cutting up sea turtles
Right.
and burning hundreds of gallons of diesel fuel,
Right.
let people channel net again.
Right.
Let
Let
people
Mother
channel
Nature
that
be
again.
the engine.
Yeah.
Push it to you.
Yeah.
I like it. And like I said, I've always kind of had a little when it comes to what we do to the bottom out here, and that's kind of actually when it comes to how we handle outdoors and wildlife policy in the state. It's the only place that I've actually been like, why are we not ever touching that? You know what I mean?
It is like
It produces a lot.
It's sacred
Man, it's
ground,
like sacred.
man. It
It's
is.
sacred. A lot of people love to see those shrimp boats.
I know it.
They
I know
love
it.
to see
Buy
them.
them off the boat in Georgetown and the whole bit. And
But don't you get a little bit nervous just saying, oh, the shrimp boats, they kill a lot of bycatch, and it's like, oh,
I know.
Lord,
I'm
where are the
serious.
Yeah, where they at?
Where are the
I'm
arrows
literally
coming
in my
from?
head like, did I say that out loud?
Yeah.
Like, I really
You did look behind you.
I
when you
did
said
a little
that.
bit, but
Yeah.
I mean, I love all my friends, but I love the ocean, man.
I do
I
too.
love it.
I do too. I feel the same way. I've got a lot of constituents that are in that business that are going to call me after this. I was just looking to see if somebody actually
Yeah.
But we're not,
We're not quite live.
We're not live.
They'll be
Yeah,
at the
so
wake.
No, we're not live. You're good.
It's
It's not Saturday morning. We're not on the radio show. Well, listen.
I don't know.
We
I didn't feel like I could talk about flounder without mentioning.
well, we've talked about all these regulations and everything else. Let's continue on about how to kill them,
okay.
Yeah.
how to catch them. Jason, last night I tell you, man, your artificial seminar was incredible, and I learned a lot from it. Let's talk real quick about some of your top artificial choices to target flounder here.
Sure. Yeah, that's what we were talking about last night. Jay touched on it. The jig head fishing, with the live bait, basically that's just a form of fishing artificial. That minnow's doing the work for you. But when it comes to artificial, spinning your reels and, turning it's the same way. We were talking about it, last night, a bigger paddle tail, a bigger swim bait. What a lot of people don't realize is flounder have a lateral line right on their spine. And that lateral line picks up vibrations. And what that does is when you're throwing an artificial bait, you want something that's going to make a little bit of noise, because that's going to let them know that something's coming and get them properly set up to ambush them, which is primarily their main source of attacking their food. So my point was on the artificial, just like bass fishing, is you have the ability to cover a lot of water in a short amount of time. The same benefits, 10, 15 years ago, to trolling was if you cover more area, you're going to catch more fish. Well, artificial allows you to cover a lot more area faster. Like y'all touched on earlier, the modern day trolling motor allows you to fish a 100-yard stretch of bank 10 times as fast as you would, let's say, 10, 15 years ago.
Beyond that, the trolling motor, the effort you have to go through to just pick the anchor and you don't do things that you should do.
Yep.
Because you get lazy because you've done it 7 times already and 8 times already.
Well, that's what we always talk about.
Yeah, that trolling motor is like bringing your best guy.
Me and you have fished together side by side a long time.
A long time.
And I try to tell, some of our newer guides and, people that are like, hey, I'm struggling, what am I doing? I always tell them, you would be absolutely floored that sometimes when you're catching fish and all of a sudden they stop biting, they moved 10 feet from where you're casting.
Yep.
So you don't pull the trolling motor up and run a quarter mile to your nearest spot. You adjust.
You bump to the left twice. 2 bumps.
That's it.
But I don't know any human being on earth that is macho enough that's going to pull the anchor to reset
10
it
feet to the
for a
left.
10-foot adjustment.
No.
Right, it's too much risk.
And I think that's why numbers have gone up.
Yes.
I think that's why. Dude, especially going back to nearshore, talking about the reef. If you get set with an anchor and doggone the wind changes a little bit, you swing 15, 20 feet, and all of a sudden you're off the fish. But instead, now all you do is take that button and go bam, bam, twice.
Now, I had it pretty figured out. I could move my anchor rope
cleats.
to my left cleat.
Yep.
And pull
You
to the
swung.
right,
You
and
taught
then
me
once
that trick.
and then, And then by pulling line in
Turn
and
the
out.
wheel all the way to the left.
Yeah, turn the
Put
wheel
on
all the way to the
starboard
left.
cleat. Here we
starboard
go.
cleat,
Yep.
You go 20 feet to the right. But we used to have to play all those games. But gosh, just to go nowadays, it's so nice.
And
so nice.
But I noticed last night, Jason, and here we're going to talk about artificials, but so you mentioned the paddle tail, but I noticed last night you kept going to shrimp. Like a lot of your choices are shrimp or something to mimic a shrimp.
Yeah, it all depends. What you really want to do is when you get to your desired area, I always say you want to give the fish options. It's no different than when we go to a restaurant, they give you a menu and you get to pick. If I'm fishing personally, not on a charter, I've got 3 rods set up. I've got 3 different looks. I may have an adjustable cork where I can drift across, very stealthy-like. I may have an artificial on one, and maybe I've got a jig head with a minnow. And what I'm looking to do is to have the fish explain to me what they want. By throwing an artificial shrimp. Last night we used the example of the Easy Shrimp by Z-Man. Cast it in there, hop it along. Stephen mentioned voodoo shrimp. You throw a shrimp mimicking lure in there, bounce it around, hop it on the bottom. Okay, you don't get hit. Okay, then you grab, a paddle tail. Well, paddle tails come in 2.5 inches, 4 inches, 6 inches, 7 inches. Maybe you throw a smaller paddle tail in there, slow roll the bottom, or hop it. Okay, you don't get hit. Maybe you grab a 6-inch paddle tail and throw it in there. Some of your bigger fish that are sitting in there, they're looking for one specific thing. Sometimes you want
They want one meal.
Sometimes you want a bowl of peanut.
How long is it before you switch baits? Are we talking about half the tide, or are we talking about 10 minutes? Or even 5
I get more concerned about switching spots before I get concerned about switching baits. I'll be dead honest. The Flounder are pretty opportunistic. And if they're there, they're going to eat something. And we go back to the shrimp shape for a second. Now, with Z-Man, this doesn't make a difference anymore. But the reason I threw shrimp shapes forever is because pinfish rip the tails off all my other ones. So if you put a shrimp shape on there, all he does is take the little antenna off it, and you still have a bait on there that you're fishing.
Right.
So I think me personally fishing shrimp shapes has become confidence because that's just what I've done because I couldn't afford a whole pack of curly tail gulps because they'd be gone in 3 minutes because of pinfish.
Well, that was something we touched on too. Is confidence is when you're fishing artificials. Confidence is everything.
Oh, I'll tell you, that one over there says it best. And Fred Rourke said, fish can feel the confidence from your end of the rod.
They can.
In other words, they can. Fish feel whether you're confident or not. It makes a difference.
It just comes down to effort.
Oh, yeah.
You give me a brand new color.
Like Monday offshore, there was no confidence in my boat at all. There was zero confidence. I know.
No. My driver, Kelly, was driving, and when everybody showed up because the fish went biting down the hole, she started getting a little road rage. And I literally had to be like, you're getting it on my lines.
Yeah.
Stop. You're getting it on my lines. Is literally the words I told her.
Well, she needed to remember something. Y'all wouldn't have been there had y'all not stopped because of the ride.
Thank God we're weak.
Thank God, y'all. Yeah.
Thank God I'm weak.
Thank God y'all are weak. But
that confidence, though, I mean, that
it does.
100%.
Because you take your favorite lure, your favorite, the one that you fished with for 20 years. How many casts do you think you would give it?
Oh, my favorite one before I move spots?
Yeah.
10?
I give you a brand. So I tell you, okay, I just talked to this guy down the street. Here's the latest, greatest. This is the best one. How many are you going to throw before you go? Screw this. I'm going back to Old Faithful.
Yeah, going back to Old Faithful.
I know. You throw 4 times, you're like,
yep.
I'm not feeling it, man.
So a lot of it is effort.
And 100%, because you know what happens? You got your favorite bait on there. Every single bounce you make, you're like, this is the bounce. This is the bounce. I'm about to feel it. This is the bounce. And it keeps your head in the game.
And I've even found out, if we were picking up paddle tails earlier. If you're paddle tail fishing, you got 2 options. You could cast out there, reel it in, or you could bounce it on the bottom.
Right.
I have found myself that if I have already lost confidence in a bait, I almost speed up my retrieve and not fully retrieve it the way I want.
Get it back and throw it again.
Because I just want to get it. I'm not fishing all the way back to the boat.
Yeah.
So
I'm mad at it. You fish like you're mad at it.
But
that's right.
Going back to Steven's point, when you pull up to a spot, giving them 3 options. Throw a shrimp artificial lure in there. Throw a paddle tail, over there. And then maybe throw something. We touched on, the little TRD.
Yeah, I want to talk about that too. I want you to bring that up.
You know what the biggest fluctuation they have, you guys would notice, was as soon as July hits and they can eat a mullet, that's all they want. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, like, August hits and they're like, I'm tired of ice cream. I want something, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And then they go back to a mud minnow, and there's this weird fluctuation that goes on in the summer.
And then in October, they want shrimp.
And then it's crazy.
Yep.
But it's the weirdest thing right now because we're in the spring. Obviously, Inglis touched on it. We got a big flounder tournament coming.
Yep.
What has amazed me, I fished this flounder tournament my whole life. The amount of fish that we are catching, that when we clean, that have croakers in their stomach, is 60%. But yet you fish a croaker, and they won't touch it.
They won't bite it.
You can't get them to eat it.
That has always blown my mind.
I just think the croaker never does right on the hook. I just think his presentation. For some reason, the trout will eat it, though. They'll catch a trout on croakers up north of here, and that's what they want.
But you could throw an artificial bait that is a little bit bigger size than even a mullet minnow, and you'll see that they'll grab it. And I think if that's the correlation that, this fish is looking for a bigger bait, where this fish is just looking for an opportunity.
Yep. That's right.
So you get 3 baits to go fishing with. Artificial, what are you going with?
I don't know that I would have different ones. I definitely would have a shrimp lure. I would throw something like a voodoo shrimp, a savage shrimp, easy shrimp. I would have one shrimp looking lure because, the bottom line is they're eating minnows or shrimp or small fish. I would probably have a small 3-inch paddle tail, something clear like a shrimp color, something with a lot of sparkles in it. And then I may have my third one being a larger, more natural color, maybe like a dark green, something. So it's not necessarily that I'm throwing 3 different types. It's that I'm throwing it in there. You want the shrimp? No, you don't want the shrimp. You want something that mimics a glass minnow or a small mud minnow? Right. You don't want that? Okay, I'm going to throw the thing in here that looks like a croaker. Well, guess what? If he pops the croaker and you pull up to the next creek, and you say, okay, well, I've caught what I want here, and I'm going to go there. I'm going to start with what worked on the last one. And then what you do is you start to develop a pattern of what is working that day.
Yep.
And it does not translate to the next day. You come back the next day, they won't.
Completely different.
But for that moment, like Jay touched on it, with the sun on the bank, with their metabolism high because you've got a lot of warm water, I look for holes and pockets and stuff that, I've got a flat on one side, a deep hole on the other. Let them decide. They want to sit in a deep hole, go 10 feet. You want to sit on the flat and warm up, go 10 feet. But when you pull up with the idea that I'm going to give them 3 looks, and after those 3 looks, and I know confidently that I fished it, I'm gone.
Looking for a location, all these locations we've talked about the whole time, do you guys think that current flow makes a big difference? In other words, that you've got a good flow in an area, or do you find them sometimes in areas that don't have much flow?
I think I'll give you a prime example. Touching back on your reef fishing, and I'll ask Jay, because like I said, you've been doing this longer than anybody. How many times have you been just destroying the fish on the reef,
and all of a sudden
the tide goes slack and they stop?
That is weird. That's weird how the tide affects the ocean like that, isn't it?
You wouldn't think.
Yeah, you wouldn't think.
But the way I look at it is, we'll use a falling tide, for example. A falling tide, you've got bodies of water that are reducing size, and everything is being pulled out. Well, that current flowing out sets up an immediate, what we call rip, or current rip or whatever. And you've got two bodies of water that are colliding, typically with the fast side and the slow side. And what you're creating is a perfect ambush spot. It's no different than today. We got a lot of wind today. We come to the back of the building because it blocks the wind, but we could stick our head out right over there and feel the full effect. So I think those fish position themselves based on the wind and current in the place where they can be lazy, but when opportunities come, they can strike, in a short distance.
And those current rips are so important, because when you're driving a boat and you change currents where you're driving, you can feel how the back end of your boat gets pushed left or pulled right. When the school of bait swims through that current line, they get disoriented for a moment, and it creates an opportunity. So there's literally a small moment when that school of bait comes through that current line where they have to reconfigure and re-catch up with each other, because they start getting blown around in two different currents. And that's the point where the flounder has an opportunity. And that's why they're on those points where two currents smash each other, because it creates an opportunity for them where the bait gets disoriented.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Wow.
And another point that I've talked to, and I know Jake could probably touch on this. I always tell people, they say, okay, I've never fished a body of water. What is the first thing that I want to look? I always
tackle shop.
Go to Baisch Boys.
Go to a local. Hey, I don't care where you are. Go to a local tackle shop, and I'll tell you, you get honest opinions, and typically your employees at a local tackle shop are outdoorsmen, hunters, fishermen,
or
whatever. And I mean, I'm just saying, they were at some point, and you get way better advice from local tackle shops.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
I've been fishing here my whole life. We take trips to the Florida Keys all the time. First thing I do, sometimes we stay, in Isla Mirada. Sometimes we stay in Marathon. Every time we go down there, first thing I do is go to a tackle shop and just start annoying people. Hey, what's going on? Hey, y'all catching them? Oh, I heard about this.
You'll find someone that sticks.
Yeah, it's the old 1 in 10. You might talk to 10 locals. 9 of them are going to say, hit the road. And one of them's going to slip up and say, yeah, I heard they were, catching over there on Alligator Reef, on the backside. And that's just enough information. You go, let's say you've never been there. Well, you're immediately going to leave there and Google. Hey, what did he say?
The Merle's Inlet National Anthem.
We were talking about what to do on a new body of water. You were getting into it now.
We were talking about, things to see. A current rip, whether you're catching speckled trout, whether you're catching redfish, flounder, black drum, a current rip is visual on the top for everybody to see. And what you see on the top is mimicked on the bottom. I've had an older gentleman, I mentioned it last night in our seminar. He said, if I'm riding in a body of water, I've never seen it, I'm looking for current rips and I'm looking for egrets. Because if there is a group of egrets on one bank, they stand still till the bait comes to them.
Something's pushing them to it.
You immediately know, okay, there's bait on this bank. Let me find the nearest rip or current break adjacent to these birds. Oh, sorry, we touched that.
No, you're good. Keep going.
And you know what? I can't tell you how many times that you'll stumble upon fish in a spot that you've never even. And it's all because you're riding 30 miles an hour and you're looking up going, well, that bank looks good. Look at all those birds. Maybe I'll stop and investigate. They're there. Maybe something else is.
That's right. Hey, folks, if you're just tuning in, we have Captain Jason Burton and Captain Jay Baisch joining us talking a little bit of flounder fishing. Now, we're starting to wind down here and time's running out, but you got any other questions you want to bring up? I mean, by the way, this could be a 2-hour deal. I knew it when we sat down. I said, this is going to be. Yeah, we haven't even gotten debates yet.
No, we could literally switch topics and still stay on flounder right now.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
We could go on for days.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
That's what makes it so awesome.
What's your favorite time of the year to flounder fish? How about let's talk about that?
My biggest flounder every year comes when the spots are here. And so that's November, because a big flounder, just like a big trout, becomes ocean going. And we only really have big flounder consistently when the spots are here, because that's what they eat. They follow the spots up to the Chesapeake, and they follow the spots right back down here when they come down here. That is their mud minnow.
Yep.
So when we have 6, 8, 10 spots here, is when the 10-pound flounder are here. And why else would you come in the inlet?
That's why you kick our butt in the live release tournament in the fall.
Are you
For
fishing?
that reason.
Are you fishing spots in the fall?
Fishing for spots?
No, fishing spots for flounder.
Yeah.
Bait?
Yeah. I will actually some of the channel. Actually, our state record comes in the fall right in front of Mall and Clay, where you can sit and catch spots, and that's probably why that fish was there.
Yeah.
You know what? I have a lot of really good ideas on how to make state records happen that I haven't put into application, and literally, you
see the level of
Carolina
hesitation
rig
here.
in the channel with a spot on it. It might be one of those ideas.
Yeah, no, I've always wondered that myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, when's your favorite time?
It's hard. It depends. Me personally, I agree with Jay. I like October.
Yeah.
You've got spots running, like you said. You've got Menhaden running. You've got the changing of the seasons. It's a lot more comfortable to fish out there. But there's a part of me, for taking people fishing for a living. There's a part of me that just loves spring.
I was going to say, it's got to be spring.
It's been a long
because
winter.
the cash register starts
It
ringing.
has nothing to do with
Jay's the same way.
Me too, buddy.
Jay too.
Well, it kicks it off, right?
It does kick it off. And
It
it's
kicks
fun.
it
It's been a long winter, and everybody's, had their fill of deer hunting. Turkey hunting's kind of dwindling out, and it's like, oh my God, I forgot I love fishing.
Yep.
It's
But
back.
at the same time, you could bring the family down, and people who don't necessarily fish a lot,
Yeah.
and you could catch a ton of fish.
Yeah, just small ones, but you can catch a ton of them.
But it's fish.
Oh, no, it's fun.
If you judge your day based on what you took home for dinner, go home and go to the grocery store.
Hardly anybody is coming to Merle's Inlet to go home with a freezer full of fish. They just want to go have a good outdoor experience, see things they don't know, what the birds are flying around, do things they don't know, hear the little history.
But
get outside. Right on.
But I talked to one of our charters this morning. I try to say hello to everybody when they come in. I asked the kid, how'd you do? He said, man, we caught tons of fish.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's awesome. I said, you have a good day? Oh, man, we had a great day. They didn't stop at the cleaning table.
Yeah, you went right back.
They went home.
Yeah,
and you know what? Going back to the whole conservation thing, every one of those fish that was caught was released.
Yeah.
They'll be caught again by another group of kids 2 weeks from now.
That's right.
And that's the cool part, that if you could go out there, you might not have one or two keepers, but are you going to tell your buddies, hey, I went to Merle's Inlet, caught 40 flounder? Or are you going to say, I just went and caught a bunch of tiny fish? You're going to tell the better half of the story.
Much better
Absolutely.
half.
Which reminds me, we need a plug for CCA here for a second.
Absolutely. Bring it on.
CCA is going to be in the inlet in the next 2 to 3 weeks, tagging redfish for the Star Tournament.
Star Tournament. Don't forget it.
Which
Jay was in it.
Fish before. Just saying.
He's caught it twice.
I know how many fish are going in the inlet this year. I know how many tags are
Yeah,
going
don't ask questions. Remember, you'll be disqualified if you ask us
As
anything.
friends,
Can't ask
I
us
don't want to
anything.
get asked any questions. I don't want to get answers to. So.
Don't ask us.
I forgot to ask what the prize is this year. Anybody know?
Oh, no. Last year was a
Polaris.
It was a Polaris.
Polaris.
Or Ranger last year.
Yeah.
One of the big ones, the 1,000.
yeah.
And the
So,
year before that, it was a flat spoke.
sea hunt.
Sea hunt?
Yeah.
Yep,
They
see
did
a
a
boat.
boat 2 years ago.
So it's always good. Whatever it is, it's going to be good this year.
Well, I tagged the fish that Jay's customer caught. I tagged that fish that they caught.
Yeah, he tagged one that I was caught on my boat.
A star?
Yep.
In the year it was supposed to be caught. Now I've caught one on my own outside the year it was supposed to be caught. But on my charter, and I'm CCA member, the whole bit, I'm registered for the whole tournament, the whole bit. But because it was a charter, it didn't count.
Didn't count.
So I got good pictures of it. I know what it looks like.
Yeah, and so for more information, I think you go to CCA, is it cca.org?
Let's-
CCASC.org.
Let's just say Google CCA South Carolina.
There you go.
Because I couldn't tell you.
I can't
I'm
remember.
gonna get yelled at for not knowing that.
And
website.
100% honest, that fish that I caught tagged was caught within 100 yards of where it was tagged by England 3 months earlier.
Yeah.
It
Within
was.
50 yards.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. I cannot believe, and we've discussed this. Merle's Inlet is your best chance to catch a tagged fish for the
Yes.
Star Tournament.
It really
There's
is.
no doubt.
Yes.
And I know your opinion on it too. But
Yeah, it really is.
Merle's Inlet is the best chance.
Well, just I'm not going to tell you the numbers, but let's just.
They want someone to win.
Yeah,
they
they-
want
yeah.
someone to
They
win.
buy
because they've had
insurance.
years where people didn't
Yep.
win and they were getting uninterested. So they are doing their best. CCA is doing their best to make sure somebody wins this.
If you were to put 100 in Merle's Inlet, and they're not.
Yeah.
No.
If you were to put 100 in Georgetown, and they're not. And if you were to put 100 in Charleston, and they're not.
Right.
Just think about the bodies of water I mean, this
That's
body
pure
of
square
water.
feet.
Yeah, right. I mean,
Square footage. I mean, look at it. I can see both ends of Merle's Inlet right here.
exactly.
The only fear in Merle's Inlet is that they run out in the ocean. Like when we get rain, they leave, and then they come back. But
all right, one last thing, and we need to plug it now, is the Grand Strand Fishing Rodeo.
Yeah.
Thoughts? What Jason has gotten the same email that I sent you. He loved that. I sent you the email. You read it.
Yeah, I love
the outline. You like the idea. You like the
absolutely.
layout.
We've had numerous discussions. You know, I grew up here. You know, and one of my first childhood fishing memories was competing against my buddies to earn Grand Strand Fishing Rodeo stickers to put on my bucket.
Yep. Yeah.
And that might be the very first level of competitiveness that got us all into fishing. It helped with, hey, I got, this, I got certificates and stuff, but what a great program. I mean, if you catch a fish, you're going to receive maybe a little reward, maybe a big reward,
maybe a big
you
reward.
Go to a banquet and they're going to call your name and they're going to acknowledge your wonderful catch in front of your peers. I mean, who does not like that? I don't care.
Well, how about if you're Joe and you're down here on a charter with Merle's Inlet Fishing Charters, and hey, you signed up before you went out. You go out, you catch a good fish, you come back and weigh it. Well, guess what? You're booking a hotel because you got to go back because you're going to the party because guess what? You might win a vacation somewhere because of your fish.
A fishing vacation.
A fishing vacation, and we're not going to go any further than that to give out too many details yet, but it's pretty doggone awesome if we end up with that. And I think we're going to be pretty good on that.
I think so, too.
And you'll be eligible, to fish it. And,
something that you guys give
well, it depends. You might be a weighmaster, so we have to watch out about that.
Well, you'd have to weigh it somewhere else.
Yep,
well, that would be cool
absolutely.
If you weighed it somewhere else, then I don't see
Yeah.
why
Hey,
you
Jay, bring it here and I'll bring mine to yours. Deal?
You know what, though?
I do. Just eats lid.
Here's the one thing I really love is that, yes, monthly winners are going to be important because that's going to get you in the end of the year. But at the end of the day, the end of the year and the big prize, you could win for having the biggest brim in the river, and you get drawn out and win the grand prize.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Everybody's going to have a chance.
Versus the biggest, I don't know, what are we going to do on something?
Pretend the biggest wahoo has the same exact chance as the biggest brim.
There you go. Absolutely.
Right. I was going to say dolphin.
Yeah, whatever.
But that's what makes it great.
That's awesome.
Is because you could be a kid like I was, fishing off a pier, fishing off the surf, and you got just as good a shot as the guy driving a yellowfin going 60, 70 miles offshore.
I won the Spanish mackerel tournament when I was, I think, 10 or 12.
Yeah.
And I still have my certificate.
Yeah. Right on. I have all that stuff laying around somewhere.
Right. Now, you do it on the boat? You were on the boat?
I was on my neighbor's boat.
Well, but still, look at the Spanish they're catching right now on the piers versus the size that y'all are catching. They're catching big ones on the piers right now.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it doesn't matter where you are. Doesn't matter where you fish. You should have as equal opportunity, I mean, if you want to come hire Jason or one of the guys and go on a charter with them, hey, you're in. Come on.
So, be on the lookout for Grand Strand Fishing
Rodeo. Yep. All the information will be out in the next 2 weeks.
Nice.
Yep.
Looking forward to it.
Looking forward to
awesome.
it. And we want to thank Myrtle Beach Chamber of Commerce. We got to thank our sponsors here, Realtree Outdoors, Realtree Fishing, Monster RG. Hey, don't forget that vacation. What an incredible deal. I wish Kim hadn't started a new job. I would take him up on that. 4 free nights for the price of 4. 8 nights for the price of 4.
Wow.
That's the best way to say it, right?
That's
because I think you said 4.
Hey, and just remember, I know we don't have any Mick Ultra on the table right now, but Mick Ultra and Better Brands, Sober Skipper. Remember, keep somebody sober at the wheel when you're on the water. Yeah. Mick Ultra's all I'm worried about.
We'll just edit that one
out. No, we're good. Mick Ultra's who I'm worried about. We got them covered. All right.
Thank you, Jason Burton.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jay Baisch.
Always a pleasure, guys. We have fun talks.
Yeah, thank you, guys. This is a little bit different, but I'll tell you what, as always, as it comes to Trilogy Outdoors, it's going to be fins, fur, and feathers, and today it was a lot about fins and a little about some feathers.
Hey, we're about to go turkey hunting right now, Dave.
Good luck. Good luck to y'all. Yeah, no doubt. All right, folks. Hey, we'll be back next week, another exciting episode. This is Trilogy Outdoors. We'll see you later.
Trilogy Outdoors Podcast is a product of Trilogy Outdoors Media. All views and opinions of our hosts and guests are not necessarily those of our sponsors. Trilogy Outdoors is produced and edited by Trilogy Outdoors Media. Be sure to follow us on all the podcast platforms as well as our social media pages on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And also, don't forget our other brands, Southern English Radio Show and Walk 'Em All Outdoor Magazine. To find more information, visit TrilogyOutdoorsMedia.com.
trilogyfur.com. And remember, if it's anything dealing with fins, fur, and feathers, you're going to find it right here on Trilogy Outdoors.